Okay. Well, if less is more, think of how much more is. More Josh, more Franz all the time. He is one of the best attorneys in Baton Rouge. Well, heck, at all of the USA. He is a regular on Court TV, as well as various other news outlets. He's awesome on Talk 107.3 with Brian Haldane. He visits churches. He's great on Twitter. He does not shit where he eats. He is the fantastic Franz Borghardt, alongside Truth or Derek podcast, Hall of Famer, the Pride of Atlanta, also tearing it up on Court TV, CNN, and a million other places. You know him as one of the smartest people in show business. You know him from being a top of the line attorney on social media, everywhere else. You know him as the incredible Joshua Schiffer. How's it going, fellas?
I'm good. You also know my unique smell, just like Franz's unique hair. That's all. Very
Smells
much.
like justice up in this Zoom.
Smells like
justice in
justice.
the Zoom.
We were
That's my
just,
pheromone, baby.
we were,
Justice.
we were just talking about you guys, when you're live in studio, how they slide you into makeup. We were like, well, wait a second. Did I not look good when I came in?
Oh, and here's the makeup and the people behind the scenes are the nicest people in the world. Anybody that ever gets brought over to like the Core TV studios has a really awesome experience with Mimi, Michelle. They are just absolute saints, and it is mind blowing to see the kind of work. Like, I didn't grow up with makeup in my life. To see what they really do, it's jaw drop. Like, it's just one of those magic things you never appreciate until you actually see it happen.
Well, no, that's what I was saying to Franz because him and I are both bald, and I know sometimes when you get in there, like I've been to weddings and stuff where you take a picture, there's like it looks like somebody's put a 100-watt light bulb in one side.
No, they come out and they've got all kinds of different sprays and powders. You can tell sometimes on the Wednesday night when I'm there for like Vinny or something, they'll even put the fake hair in me because there's the professional grade hair spray that has color and stuff. And man, it makes you look thick. Because man, I'm not fooling. I'm balding.
I never get past.
Golden.
So when you're on with Vinny, I never get past your legs. You have killer legs,
You
Josh
got the
Schiffer.
socks, man. You gotta have the good socks on. And yeah, there's a lot of discussion about the right layout for socks and legs and such. I try, if I'm sitting at home in Zoom, not to wear very many pants because I find them restrictive on my creativity.
Well, you're lucky,
I
actually.
strongly recommend basketball
like-
shorts.
You're lucky that you're a lawyer and not a teacher, because you remember when the whole COVID thing was happening, how many teachers they were masturbating, they were getting caught naked,
Oh,
like 10 and 12-year-old girl.
It happens in court constantly, where as the Zoom court develop the decorum rules, and they're depending on which court you are, judges can have some real strict ones or some real flexible requirements.
Flexible. That would be one of your lawyer questions when you first get to the business. You're like, do I have to wear a suit to court today, or can I just kind of wear like shorts and a basketball jersey?
You know, it's funny because, like, it really was the Wild West back then. I mean, like, I'd have federal court on Zoom or online, and I would have a jacket and tie on, but like, I clearly had blue jeans on, or I'd clearly have shorts on that nobody would ever know unless I had to get up and go get a file or something, and the judge knew. Like,
Oh,
I mean, like, I'm
why,
clearly
why do you
home
have
under
robes in
lockdown.
why do they have robes in the first place? You go on a robe checking tour, you're gonna find about 70% sweatpants. Like, under that robe is not necessarily. There are plenty
I've
of ones
always
that-
thought that.
but yeah, the robe. It's funny when you really start realizing how judges are regular people and all that other good stuff. That really the robe is their safety costume. They go back as normal people and they come out in the and it doesn't matter what's under it. But that robe shows so much power.
Other than Franz dressing like Don Johnson going to court with the oversized suit jacket and jeans, I did have a clothing question that came in last week with one of our people on Twitter. Do you think, when we've talked about juries lately and all the stuff that's going on with YNW, Do you think that him wearing, they're coming out that it's a $4,000 sweater, it's a
Oh,
$3,000
you're talking the YSL suit, not
YSL?
YFN
My,
Lucci.
my
You're talking
apologies.
YS. Get your rep right. Come on now.
Oh, I mispronounced that to the worst person on the planet, but
So I'll say this. I think that obviously jurors pay attention to what people are wearing, and you have to deal with their particular personal things. I can't tell you a lot about brands necessarily, except the ones that I recognize. And I probably have some biases about certain clothes. I think that you can't get away from that. Everything's biased in our lives. Everything you look at is colored by the bias of you. Bias isn't a bad word, it's just a word. Um, Whether or how your dress can affect your case, man, there's a million anecdotes that could show both ways. The one I always tell that makes me laugh, I used to hang around with a certain number of gentlemen that worked in the adult entertainment industry that might have been mostly from a country in Southern Europe known for a history of organized crime. And they were going to this big federal trial, and the lawyers freaked out because without collaborating, corroborating, getting together on it, these 4 or 5 guys all showed up in the shiniest 1980s. Are you kidding me? And they're like, y'all are up on organized crime stuff. Don't dress like a knockoff B-movie mobster from Hollywood in 1984. Y'all look like convictions. And, these guys, bro, this is a fucking $2,000 suit. And they're like, I don't care. Go to Sears. Get yourself some chinos, brother.
you're on trial for being in the mafia.
So,
And you came dressed like you're in the mafia.
so the phrase I use is don't dress the part. If you're accused of being a high-level drug dealer, don't dress the part of a high-level drug dealer. And look,
do not dress like a doctor, because we all know doctors are the biggest drug dealers in the world. Sorry. That's
right. So for me, I will tell people what I care more about is, and I think what juries care more about is things fitting right. So not too baggy, not too tight. Like, you would be better to spend 60 to $100 on getting something good, well tailored, than thousands and thousands. I mean, a $5,000 suit may look great, but to me, it's more about neither too flashy nor too distracting, or like there's this weird middle ground.
I think what you're getting at is you need to dress the part, and you just need to be aware that other people's opinions of you during this court appearance, they do matter. So as a lawyer, I own really expensive suits. I also own a bunch of K&G bulletproof, $50 jacket. I love buying some stuff off of Amazon that I know is never going to fit right. It's going to fit off the rack, because guess what? I don't need to dress up super fancy if that's not the message. Now, if I need to throw on the dripping of what, I can do that. But then anybody that knows me goes, wow, why is Schiffer dressed up like that? That's kind of foolish. They're much more comfortable in what I've established as my kind of basic uniforms, where a lot of lawyers kind of fall into that. They get something that they identify with, because there's some branding involved with lawyers and marketing. Lots of lawyers are cowboy boots or bow ties or flashy colors. I've got glasses, the color purple. So you bring that in, but you've got to do that balance like Franz is talking about, without being overtly manipulative and being called out for that curation. It's got to have something natural, and how you dress does reflect on what you're doing. Don't dress the part of the worst biases that juries are going to have, at least in my opinion, unless you're leaning into that.
Now, do you think there's anything that you could dress Adam Montgomery in that would save him? Because I was just talking to Franz right before we started recording, and it seems like even the people that are all for a fair trial want to put him in jail, put him under the jail, and just get him to disappear for forever.
Can clothes ever mean a not guilty? No, not really. Like, you can wear all kind, man. You can stand there with a rosary and prayer. We oftentimes get people with like religious or fraternal clothing I'm a member of this sorority or this fraternity or this men's group. And guess what? Some of that stuff, matters. I've seen it happen. You never know, but you ain't counting on that. If you think that your membership in a certain group is going to guarantee that result, no, man. And the more you think about it, manifest that, worse it's going to be for you.
So I like the middle because you're never going to satisfy everybody. You could offend anybody. So, like, for example, Josh mentioned the rosary, right? I'm pretty Catholic. I love rosaries.
You're very Catholic.
If I see a client wearing a little. If I see a client wearing a rosary as a necklace, I will tell you that offends a lot of Catholics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please don't do that. I appreciate that you love the rosary. I love the rosary. Don't do that, right? Yep. I would rather them not know that you have a rosary than you to do something, even if they're being sincere about it, even if they wear the rosary every day as a necklace. I would rather it just be kind of right here to where, and it gets difficult because, like, look, I'm a watch guy. I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now, but I'm a watch guy, right? There are watches I will not wear for a jury trial because I don't want them to think that I'm flashy. I'm a watch guy, though. I love a good watch, but I won't do that, and I don't want my client wearing, you don't need to be the guy wearing a watch the size of a phone on your wrist when you're accused of doing something that makes you look the part of
you want to look sad and poor.
And
wear a Timex.
It's all about playing again with these biases and the ability of people to make decisions about you or not. If you're representing somebody in a techno bro kind of fraud thing, you got to understand that some people are going to find that lifestyle really cool and impressive and something that they want to grow into. And that's aspirational just as much as you're going to find somebody who's anti-capitalistic or anti-materialistic that sees that 60 millimeter Patek Philippe, Thunder watch that's worth $30,000 and sees that and goes, already hate them. And man, there's some weird things that set people off. So there is a real concern about tacking towards the middle of non-offense rather than taking a characteristic jump so that your identity is really exposed through your clothes. And it's music clothes, it's political clothes, it's your sexiness or not. There are lawyers that lean hard into I'm a super beautiful person or I'm a super not beautiful person. And man, I don't shake it. I ain't got no problem. If you are a 10 out of 10 and that's what wins you, Kate, God bless you. That's awesome.
I know it works in real estate. There's a lot of hot real estate agents.
There are a lot of unfortunate jokes, some of which resemble reality when you get to that part of the universe. And here's the problem. There are clients that are super biased on the way in, and they're only going to hire a lawyer that matches some sort of preconceived notion, be it a young go-getter that shares demographic similarities with the client, or there are people walk in and go, man, I ain't hiring anybody under the age of 60 that doesn't have a last name that tells me their religion and doesn't have this kind of suit on. It's weird.
And it's not just, by the way, it's not just our profession.
No.
Check real estate. Yeah, check real estate. What does being an attractive realtor have to do with the buying and selling of a house? It has absolutely nothing, but we love attractive realtors.
We do.
Right?
There's series of movies that are roughly 10 to 30 minutes long. Franz can talk about at length all about attractive realtors. A very interesting series on the internet. I don't encourage you to look for it. But that's true. And here's the other thing about looks, and Franz will admit to this because I've talked with him and we laugh about it. There are clients that you meet, and after doing criminal law for long enough, you just have to look at them, and you can generally tell what they're charged with, and it's awful. But man, there are clients that walk in, and everybody's like, okay, yep, that's going to be a drug, alcohol, a sex charge, unfortunately, child sex charges. there's something about that where you can almost smell the charge a mile away, and it's eerie how the guy, almost always a guy, walks in and without even be like, "Yep, totally get why you're here."
Okay.
And it's the same when I see certain, for lack of a better term, my middle-aged housewives. If you are in a certain demographic, dress and act a certain way and come in, man, you probably have a theft problem. You might have a quiet drunk problem. Uh, and it's amazing.
Soccer mom pills.
So yeah, that what happens common
What?
enough that you're like,
Right.
oh,
You
I know what's
remember
going to happen on
Winona
this.
Ryder fit that bill. And remember she was shoplifting? That was kind of exactly what you just described.
Franz, do you tell me if I'm wrong? Shoplifting has so much to do with the mentality of the person more than the crime than basically anything else. There are people that shoplift for necessity. There are people that shoplift because it literally is the only way of putting food on their table. There are a huge number of people who shoplift for some sort of mental interior reason
Rush.
that is hard to get to the bottom of, even though there are some commonalities a lot of them share. And you'd be blown away how many shopliftings I've had in my career where they had plenty of cash and credit cards on them, and they're stealing stuff they didn't even want. And you're like, why the hell are you stealing a VCR? and, and it's because it's the mentality.
Right. It might be a mental defect. It may be an adrenaline rush of I want to get away with it. Stealing a Snickers bar when you clearly can buy a Snickers bar. It's just it's crazy. And then those people. What's really interesting is those are the people that will also buy $150 worth of groceries at a Walmart and get caught for shoplifting one thing, and you're like, wait, what? No. It's a weird dynamic. But yeah, it becomes uncanny how you can start predicting. And it sounds horrible. I get that it sounds horrible that we're saying you can just look at somebody and kind of tell. But I mean, the upper middle class guy that has no criminal record that comes into your office that looks like he's never been in the criminal justice system, full-time job as an engineer or whatever, and you're like, yeah, you've been looking at child porn.
Okay.
Or you're
and you get it with politics and some political, social, and cultural leanings as well. If you lean hard into certain issues, and before you even tell me what to charter, I'm gonna have a good idea about it. And you learn that, and you learn how to help manage your clients and manage their expectations and manage their cases using those politics and cultural cues. I have one right now that involves some gun rights. I do a number of gun cases, and guns are a really polarizing issue, and people have really unique, strong opinions about firearms and laws. If I can know your feelings or have a good idea about them early in the conversation, a lot of the training Franz and I do has to deal with reversing roles and getting into the perspective of other people. If I know a lot about your perspective because I've reversed roles with you and put thought and effort into that, I can guide the conversation using what I know to get to the destination I want. So if I need you to understand as an accused that your idea of appropriate gun safety is valid, but so is the police officers, and they're really different, you got to kind of get into those politics and almost feed into some of the biases that your clients have. I literally said it this week where this guy's complaining about how he's holding his firearm, but he's in the presence of some law enforcement. And we literally had to walk through. All right, so just remember, imagine you're that officer and you don't know and you don't know that you're trained, and he sees this firearm in this position. You're going to claim that's down ready, but you understand how the officer can see that as being an extraordinary threat to his life, health and livelihood, as well as everybody else surrounding.
Sorry, Franz brought up something interesting just before that. When you are working, I mean, obviously, you say people walk in, you get referrals and things of that nature. Do you have some of those days where you're working on a murder trial or you're working on a child pornography case, and then you do have someone that's like a shoplifter or something like that? Like, is that kind of a weird headspace where it's like you have a day where you're dealing with all these different things. And then I don't want to say one that doesn't matter, but obviously a shoplifting case is probably going to take backseat to a homicide.
So, it's not that it takes backseat. So like, in theory, it would be great to have nothing but homicide cases where you're making six figures on each homicide case. In theory, that's great. But the reality is you need the shoplifting cases, you need the lower level cases because that's cash flow, right? I can churn a shoplifting case much quicker than I can a 3 to 5 year murder case. And so it's not that it's like, I can't believe I'm dealing with this and actually it's, man, this is refreshing. I get to deal with something that's a little bit less, it's a little bit less serious. Yeah, I mean, I know how this is going to play out. It's not. I have cases right now that are set for trial in a couple of months that I'm like, I have no clue how those are going to play out. It could be a plea, it could be a trial, it could be God knows. But like the smaller stuff, that is actually very, to me, I need that financially. I need that. It's it's chicken soup for the soul because it's like, okay, here's somebody I can really help, like in a smaller basket of trouble, and that has a very finite start finish resolution.
Yeah, I gotta totally agree with Franz on. I like the variety, and there are lawyers that don't. There are lawyers that I just do 5 big cases, and man, that's great. You got 5 murders that you're getting $150,000 a piece off of. Man, that's a great practice. You only have 5 cases. I don't want to just do, bet the farm, huge everything. Everything's the most important. No, man. I got to have some slap and tickle DVs and some traffic stuff because guess what? I showed up to court on traffic stuff. I don't really need to prep that much. I've done the prep 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And therefore, I get a lot of enjoyment. Now, for the client relationship, certainly not everybody's charged with a murder or a multi-decade felony. That's an emotional connection that's really different from your teenager with a shoplifting where, I'll tell you, that teenager thinks their life is over. There's a personal benefit and good feeling where even though that was a misdemeanor that we always knew he was never getting any time for, even if he got convicted, the judge was just going to give him probation.
Yeah.
But the act of advocating for and building that relationship, that's really satisfying to me. I'm going to say it's satisfying to Franz as well. It's different from the relationship you get with that 1, 2, 3, 4 year murder case. Not that it's worse, but it's different. And then is the financial consideration and your workaboutism. If I'm going to spend a day working on something really heavy and crappy that we're going to really struggle with and it's bad and there's tough facts, I don't want to do that necessarily 5 days in a row. I want to have a day or two in between there where it's like, and now we're going to work on something else. And it could be a case, it could be business, it could be another project. I need that for my own brain. Not that it's wrong that there are people that just do big things. On the other side of that, there are lawyers that say, I don't want to do a single felony. I'm just going to do misdemeanors for the rest of my life. And they love it. It works for them.
And if you get a high enough
prosecution,
if you get a high enough volume of misdemeanors, you can make a good living. I mean,
oh yeah. The DUI only people for a long time made real good money in America.
Yeah, I see a lot of those. Hurt
Not
in a
anymore.
car wreck, get a big check.
That's different. That's plaintiff civil, and that's a whole other universe.
So one of the most serious cases nationally right now, believe it or not, and it probably won't be hard for you to believe, domestic violence, right? That is one of the most serious. Prosecutors have generally taken a very hard stand on it. In a lot of places, a first offense is a misdemeanor. In some places, it's a felony. I had one come into my office this week, a 65-year-old woman who was charged with domestic violence on her husband. Get this, she threw cranberry juice on him after he called her the C word. I got real self-righteous on that one. Ultimately, that was a case where I charged a fair fee. I made a couple of phone calls. The prosecutor's like, I'm not charging grandma with throwing cranberry juice after she's called the C word. I mean, I've got to give my mom and my grandmother a hug later, and
Yeah.
that case.
I got to go in front of a jury, man. I can't go in front of a jury with that.
That's what I was going to say. Go to Texas. You'd be like, we're giving that grandmother 35 years.
So that case may have a shelf life of, I made a couple of phone calls. I may only have one more meeting with that client over the span of 2 weeks. My client at 65 years old, never been in trouble before. The sleep that she gets now, when I told her, hey, they're not going to prosecute you, is the best sleep she's ever going to get. She never was going to go to jail.
I have the best lawyer in the entire world. His name's Franz. He literally works miracles. Call him for everything. And he talked to me and he charged me reasonable money. And every one of my friends, only call Franz. Yeah. Only call Franz. That's how you build practice.
Yeah. Now,
right. And it's.
I had a question about the fact that you guys are practice owners and all this sort of this thing with Crumbly. Is this going to change the landscape of when these things come across your desk, where you have to say, like, like you were just saying, the cut and dry, as these get more difficult to a shooting or a stabbing or something like this? Is this something that you guys are going to have to change your strategy for and say, listen, it's not just one person involved now. Like, this is going to be, there's multiple layers to this, where 5 years ago there was.
Well, I think that all depends on the practice and the lawyer and where the practice is at. I've had the same partner, Doug Chanko, since 2009-10. We've also at different times had 2 or 3 additional lawyers in the office, multiple staffers. Now we're down to something real lean, but we just hired another staffer because we had more need for it. And my practice has changed. I used to be much more on because I just did different stuff, and then it changes. And I know Franz has worked with people. He works alongside people. He partners with people. Criminal is a lot more small firm, solo, double practitioners because of the conflict issues. You see that actually in Crumbly right now. The 2 defense lawyers used to be partners, but to save the representations, they're not partners anymore. They still work together extensively. But when you've got the big cases, it's part of how you run your business, because if you handle it right, it's fantastic. If you handle it wrong, you go out of business. And I know lawyers who have literally gone out of business because they haven't managed those scheduling issues. We've got some big trials here, like you mentioned, the YSL trial. I know of more than one lawyer associated with that, where the financial burden of continuing on a case that long has been horrific for their personal businesses. And then you get into, well, is that why lawyers plead people out too fast or not enough? Like, there's some real ugly ethics that get involved, because when you sign up to represent someone, you're the representative. The court has assumed you did everything right and are fully prepared, and man, that was your decision.
So let me initiate you to the negative side of success. You're representing a high-profile defendant in a RICO case, spending tons and tons of time dedicated to this, which on all accounts should make you a more notarized attorney. It should make you more in demand, all these positive things. Well, what starts happening is other attorneys around you start talking shit about, he doesn't have time for you.
Yep.
Look at what he's doing. I mean, you think he's going to care about you when he's doing this case over there? And there is a double-edged sword to high-profile, practice killer like cases versus the client who does not want to be in the news, who wants to be I'm in your office for about 2 weeks and then we resolve my case. There are pros and cons to everything. Shannon Smith tried a wonderful case. She did a really good job with that trial. I vetted the case with my law school class of 40-something law students, a variety of pro-prosecution, pro-defense. And the takeaway I got from watching the trial, commentating, and vetting it was, this is not going to be a bright line case. It's a very fact-specific case. The problem is that we have to treat every single parent now as if it were a Crumbly when it may not be a Crumbly. And that is going to be the problem. And that case was document and evidence intensive, not because of the role of the parent, but because of the actual shooting at the school. I mean, ridiculous amounts of evidence in that case. Like how old was that case by the time it got to trial? It was pretty, the other thing is the expense of that defense. I don't know Shannon Smith well enough to know, to be tacky enough to ask her, hey, how much did you get paid for that? But I'll say that is not an inexpensive defense.
You're like, Franz is like, whatever, you guys are all going to jail. How much did you make?
Yeah. For a case that has that many moving parts, and I know Shannon well, not would like to hang out, but we work together, we train together. I know what her prior practice has looked like. Without a doubt, that is an earned fee of well over $100,000. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you get it. There are lawyers that take losses on cases that start off well-funded and aren't well-funded later on. Situations change because the judge has to be the one that lets you out. What a lot of people don't understand, lawyers just don't go and quit. Your client has rights and obligations that you don't get to manipulate or mess with. The courts do have remedies. If a judge says, Mr. Schiffer, you're going to go represent that person, I got to do it. It's part of being a lawyer in Georgia.
That's how that's how Kirk got Jody Arias. That just
it is how.
So let's talk Nermy for a second, and let's talk about Shannon Smith and the social media reaction to them fighting for people that were less than savory clients, right? And we'll stick to Shannon Smith. Some of the social media I saw on commentary on Shannon Smith was just downright ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would love to have a camera filming you at your job, your day job, for all week long, and all
6
the little
months,
peccadillos and all the little things. Yeah, like you make a mistake and you say, oh man, I'm just going to shoot myself. Oh, she must be histrionic and crazy. Like, I got so, like, the pettiness. Like, you don't like the fact that she's defending. You don't like Crumbly, Jennifer Crumbly. I get it, right?
Awesome.
I'm the first to say, yeah, good deal. But, like, some of the just abject pettiness on social media. And I know that he also, when he was representing Arias, he probably got the same.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no
humbled.
Oh, when I talked to him, when he was talking about all this, like, still he has to block people on Twitter. When that whole thing was going on, people were mailing him death threats, like, to his office and stuff. Like, it was one nightmare after another. And at the end of the day, it's just like, shit, man. This got put on my desk. Like, this has nothing to do with me. I came to work.
And how lawyers deal with that is a big thing. Like, so public defenders, especially long-term career public defenders, man, it slides right off and water off duck's back because you think that's a bad guy. You should see the guy that I defended that didn't get any press coverage.
Wait till you see his name.
That's the one where they're like, you want to talk awful? You should see the one we just pled. without anybody ever mentioning anything, and we just all went to court, and he's gone forever. That's the really awful people. Social media, it plays this role, and one of my mentors, Jerry Spence, wrote this whole book screaming and moaning about the true crime universe and the positivity and negativity of it. I happen to believe the good of more public justice interest it outweighs the bad, but at times the bad's awful. Look at the what's the little girl from Colorado and Georgia who's been missing forever, and they've destroyed the family. The little blonde girl, where it's the brother that probably did it. Mary, whatever.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I read about that yesterday too.
Yeah, but you see exploitative news, and there have been prominent anchors that have absolutely harmed innocent people. I know I personally stay away from that. I stay away from those kind of broadcasts. I know Franz does as well. As pundits, we have to be really aware of where we're showing up
Yeah.
because you don't want to be on something that's just nakedly exploitative. At the and I understand every broadcast agency is collecting clicks, and to collect clicks, it's way easier to collect them with interesting, salacious stuff than, hey, let's talk about a tax case.
Let's
But
not mince words either. Let's not mince words. Defending Jennifer Crumbley, the magnitude, the press on that case is a once in a career case. There are attorneys that have been practicing for 20 years that have not dealt with a case of that magnitude and may never deal with a case of that magnitude. And so it is real easy. And this is, as someone who actually tries cases, Josh actually tries cases, I actually try cases. I have to remind people sometimes, yeah, being a commentator, armchair quarterbacking is fun, but there's a certain amount of latitude I'm going to give a trial attorney, because when you're in it, like in the trench, and you're really in it, it's a lot easier to armchair when you don't have any concept of what's happening, like in real life. Like, for example, a trial day for someone trying a case of that magnitude, it may not be a 24-hour day, but easily 16, 17 hours.
every day.
And put that over every single day. You're
With
in almost
staff.
survival mode with staff. You're in survival. I mean, you're effective, but you're also the rest of your life. What's happening with that? Like,
You're
Are you
talking to
eating food?
two single guys that could talk a lot about how being a trial lawyer, it's filled with people with, I'll just be blunt, troublesome personal lives because of what it does to us. It's all prosecutors, all defense attorneys, they're going to tell you, man, personal relationships are just different because you've got to have a spouse or partner that understands, no, I got to drop everything right now. There's not a choice. There's not a can do it. No, judge says be there at 2:00 in the afternoon to try the case. That's it. Like, I don't get to plan my vacation.
tell someone who you love, look, sweetheart, I understand, but if I don't get this done, this dude's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, and that's more important to me than my kid's whatever game.
I understand it's Valentine's Day. We've got trial calendar at 9 a.m. on the 15th, and I can't go out with you because I got to go work on this ridiculous other thing. And you either understand that or don't. And not that other jobs don't have lots of very strict, hard things, but law allows you to have this personal impact on someone's life, unlike most other jobs. Because if I have a late night partying and staying up and then don't do well at your trial, yeah, that ain't good.
To say sorry, I had too much wine last night. You're going to jail.
There are loads of stories of lawyers, and then you get into the psychology of who goes into a job where your job is to fight. Every morning, I wake up and I get to fight because I love it. Want to know why? In my personal life, I'm the most hermit, non-confrontational. I don't raise my voice. I don't yell. I don't scream. I don't fight personally. I don't. Even when I've had and I'm a divorced dad, not a single fight like most people have in a relationship because I'm that anti-conflict in my personal life. My professional life, I want to have conflict every minute of the day. And guess what? I'm better at conflict than you, and I win conflicts, and I love it. Let's have some conflict right now. I'm super comfortable in conflict land.
You know what? I just wanted to go back a second when you guys were talking about like the armchair true crime thing. I mean, obviously with the television appearances and stuff, that's a good thing. But you guys, I mean, you're both very knowledgeable. You're both very active on TV and on socials and all that sort of thing. So when you see people that are like passing judgment and just say talking shit for that matter, and you're like, you know, I've tried one of these cases. I know what's going on. I've seen all the news, and they're like, okay, you've watched court TV or you've watched CNN for a half an hour, and all of a sudden you're fuck this and put this guy in jail for that and all that. You just want to a little part of you wants to say like,
so
sit down and read about it, you know.
No, it's so I bifurcate it. it's about the accused, if it's about the trial, if it's about guilt or not guilty, not innocence, guilt or not guilty, it's a gift because this is how jurors and human beings think. And granted, they're a little bit more emboldened on social media anonymously than they are like in a courtroom. But that to me is a gift. Where I lose my shit and where I get frustrated is when there's petty commentary that has nothing to do. Like I didn't like Shannon Smith's hair today. Oh my God, did you see Shannon Smith's hair? And I'm like, really? Like, but I love. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, very much along the same lines as Franz. The ad hominem personal attack, I don't have as much patience for that as I do. I really didn't like the way that came out. I don't like this argument. This isn't affecting me. If it's that dress makes her ass look big, but then there's also, are you a layperson, commentator, regular Joe, civilian, or are you a lawyer? I have a very strict standard with lawyers speaking out on public and social media as opposed to lay people. I assume lay people do not understand the complexities of litigation, do not understand how much more of the story you cannot know unless you are literally involved with the case. If you're a lawyer and you're going down that route, I have no mercy for you. And if you're going to go out there and criticize lawyers in a shitty, ad hominem, lots of hyperbole, salacious way, I will fucking light you on fire. That is wrong.
You think
like, this is a profession, and as much as we like having a good time, you will respect other professionals who are licensed. You're going to be reasonable in your criticism. Doesn't mean it can't be vicious. The most vicious criticism is the most academically accurate. If I'm demeaning your very existence and effectiveness as a lawyer, I assure you it hurts more than me calling you fat. But if you're...
And I lean into the reality that, like, if someone points out, hey, you're bald and overweight, I'm like, well, I am, in fact, bald and overweight. You're winning me up, Captain Obvious there.
So far, you're 2 for 2.
Yeah. And I can be this successful being this fat, bald, and ugly. Suck it. Like, that's seriously. Love the haters. People, Josh, don't people mean what? Oh, yeah, what are they going to say? Oh, you're fat. Okay, yes. And bald. Oh, okay. Dude, I have a really awesome life. I'm sitting here being interviewed with one of my good friends on a podcast wearing basketball shorts on a Friday afternoon. I lead a fucking amazing life.
We got it right.
It's awesome. You can suck it with your... And really, insults are so... And you realize this the older you get. Insults are about the person throwing the insult. And you get that the more older you get. That's projection. And if you need to pick on me, wow, dude... What is wrong in your life?
So I don't, and the other side of it is, I don't really, like, I look at my life and like all the stuff that like Josh and I get to do on a daily basis, and I laugh. Because like, I don't take myself that seriously. Like, people ask me, like colleagues in local court were like, why is it that you're on national TV talking to court TV? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, they must really be desperate. I mean, I don't know. I don't take myself that seriously because, candidly, I find that the people that take themselves that seriously tend to not commentate as well as the people that look, I put my shoes on one shoe at a time every single morning. My dog, who I love, who's 14 years old, old girl, old mini schnauzer, pisses on the ground every single morning. Franz Borghardt's on the ground picking up pee every single morning because he loves this dog.
He doesn't have it played.
I'm not taking... No. I'm not taking myself that seriously. This, and by the way, this all ends at any moment. There is a sea of other attorneys. There's a sea of other attorneys who would love to do commentary.
Fame and notoriety as a lawyer is as fleeting as you get. You could be the most famous lawyer in the nation and then give it 6 months, and you will not get recognized in a million years. And Franz is absolutely right about that. And taking yourself seriously versus not. we're lawyers. We're regular people. First of all, lawyers, really regular people. They ain't that special. Just like doctors. I know it scares them. Doctors are just people that have gone to school a lot longer. Judges, totally regular people. It freaks you out when you get to be a middle-aged lawyer and your idiot friends that you went to law school with, that you're like, ah, man, come on, you're just going to be a
He's going to be a judge.
yeah, you're like, well, man, congratulations on the appointment. That's awesome. And literally, then you go to the party where the judges are like, dude, I had no clue what I was doing. Thank God there's other judges that I could call. I had no idea what to do at that point. Judges have schools, like literally a judge school, where you learn how not to put your shoe in your mouth, because that's the biggest worry about judges is now you are the authority. So everybody's watching you and every mistake is magnified. And they're judging initially out of a big sense of fear of not wanting to screw up and look dumb as a judge.
As arrogant, self-absorbed, and narcissistic as I am, and I am very self-aware, and I work very hard on it too, I will tell you one of my proudest and funniest moments in my career was I was arguing something in a federal court. And a judge was totally playing with her food and was trying to box me into a corner. And she looked at me and said, Mr. Borghardt, it sounds like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. And I looked at her, not missing a beat, and said, you know what, Judge? That absolutely sounds like something I would do. I absolutely would talk out of both sides of my mouth. So if I'm doing it, Judge, I probably am. She started laughing. It entirely diffused the situation because I don't take myself seriously.
Authenticity.
I will fight. Yeah, I will fight. Like, I will fight in the gutter for my client if it is appropriate and it's right and it will advance my client. It's not about me. My ego is such that it's not, now again, that being said, there's also the other piece is we have a sea of lawyers. I don't know about Canada. We got a sea of lawyers in the United States.
We have
there's oceans of lawyers, right? Georgia, in the Atlanta area alone, I'm sure there is thousands of lawyers. Louisiana, thousands of lawyers.
Most of whom know how to read.
Yeah.
I actually I just had to look it up because we had I'll let you guys guess because I know we're gonna do some rock and roll stuff today, but we did have a legal family feud and a law or not, which we'll do next week or the week after. But I actually have how many lawyers are in North America as of January 1st, 2022. Do you guys each want to take a guess?
I want to say the statistics that I knew was something like there was one lawyer for every 100 citizens in the nation roughly, and then I know in Georgia, I want to say it's something like 70 or 80,000 lawyers for the state, but it's not going to surprise. And lawyer concentrations are different depending on the state. But
I'm guessing 500,000.
There is 1.327 thousand, so 1.3 million registered lawyers in the U.S. as of January 1st, 2022.
And we have about 300 million people, 280 million, 300 million people.
All right. I had some of those. I'm burning off all my questions for next week, but outside of New York and California.
Well, you got 2 minutes left with me before I got to hop on the other thing.
Okay, then I'll do this really quick. Outside of New York and California, what states have the most lawyers?
Illinois, Texas, Florida.
Florida's hard to get into, though. It's a retirement state.
But it's got like 9 law schools and 7 for-profit ones. Illinois, I'm going to say like Ohio probably has a good number of lawyers.
Texas,
Virginia.
Franz is right. Texas. So we got New York number 1. We have California number 2. Texas was number 3.
Virginia, Florida, Delaware, Mid-Atlantic.
Florida number 4. Illinois number 5.
Yeah.
Both missing number 6.
Is it Georgia?
No, it's Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
Followed by,
Tri-state area.
Okay.
followed by
New Jersey,
Ohio,
New
which you
York,
had,
Pennsylvania.
and then Georgia.
Yeah. I know we have a weird in Georgia, like the personal injury concentration in Georgia is, I think, the highest in the nation or something like that. We have more personal injury because we don't regulate the speech properly, and we've allowed the flourishing of some very crooked, bad lawyers in Georgia, primarily in the injury universe. But yeah, lawyers, part of my joke is everybody should go to law school because really it ain't that hard. There's some tougher concepts, but really there's not a lot in law school that with enough time anybody can't learn the concept. And they've made life so complicated. You basically need to I can't do my own taxes. I can't figure out my own lots of things. Are you kidding me? All right.
Yeah, okay. Franz has got to bounce, so we will do our rock and roll thing next week. But for more Josh and Franz, maybe you need a lawyer, maybe you need advice, maybe you were fired for shitting where you eat, or using school funds to hire hookers and shooting porn. In any case, check out Joshua Schiffer at www.jdgrouplaw.com, on Twitter at LawyerSchiff, or just Google Joshua Schiffer. And for an extra helping of Franz in Louisiana, visit www.borghardtlawfirm.com, or on Twitter at BorghardtLaw, or just use the international network. Google him, reach out to me, whatever it is, gentlemen. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
See you next week, guys.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye. Awesome.
So, how you doing? Everything all right?
Yeah, oh, man, I'm telling you,